Greetings, user. Neural link established. Ready for takeoff.
Hello everyone, and welcome to OS World Cup 2021 Grand Finals Sunday. We are racing towards the final match of the year, but before we get there, we've decided to give a little recap of our tournament that is about to end. We're going to talk about some of the amazing things, some of the amazing players, some of the amazing teams that we have seen over the course of this tournament. We're going to be calling this Full Circle. It's going to be myself. I'm going to be joined by Chillier Pair today. We're going to hand out some awards to our MVPs, our Rookies of the Year, our Teams of the Year, some of the teams and players that we were amazingly impressed by, that we saw great things from this year, and that we're going to see great things from going forward into the future. In order to talk about this a little bit more and to give some background onto this idea, I'm going to throw it over to Mr. Chillier Pair. How is it going? What can we expect to see today?
Oh, this is a fantastic day. I'm sure everyone always very highly anticipated day. Grand finals time. This is the match that the entire tournament comes down to. And we're going to be kicking it off today in a little bit of a different way. We've got something we've really not done before in the World Cups, let alone a recap. We've got a very special awards convocation before the match today. We have put together a collection of some of the very best players, staff, contributors, and those who have made OWC such a great tournament, and the World Cups in general in some cases. And today we are here to recognize those of them. We will be calling it the OWC Awards. That is how we are going to be starting off today. And I think that many people here will be excited to see some of their favorite players, their favorite staff members maybe, and they'll pop up on here eventually. We'll go through all of the award categories. We have 12 of them today if we want to kick this off.
All right. So we're going to get started with a couple of fun little non-directly gameplay related awards. The first award of this year is going to be our Team Collab of the Year. Everybody knows about the profile collaborations that a lot of teams like to do for their World Cup team profile pictures. This year, we've seen some teams that really set up some instant familiarity, and there's some recognition for what they're doing, what they look like, and, you know, kind of the sentiment behind these collabs. And for our winner, it's one that has been expertly executed while also just being absolutely top-level content. They really raised the bar this year, and I think this is going to be starting a trend that we're going to see going forward, maybe see the standards being raised to this level. And it is, of course, going to be Team Canada with their Squid Game collab, hand-drawn and commissioned by Zoodinator. It features characters from the OWC team being shown as characters from the show. It is going to be... it's just really impressive. I don't know, the quality of this one is pretty amazing, and it has everything that to make this really instantly recognizable. I think it's very impressive to everyone. The effort that went into it is incredible, and so for that reason, Canada team collab from Squid Game gets the Team Collab of the Year for 2021.
Congratulations to them. We'll be moving on to our second award here, another content-related one. We have our award for Content Creator of the Year. This award is here to honor the hardworking creator who brings high-quality content to keep our fans entertained, informed, or educated. Anyone who curates content whilst attracting a mass-scale audience is eligible for this award, taking into account areas such as presenting style, popularity, originality, integrity, and overall quality of the content. Whether it's behind-the-scenes look at a player's career or detailed analysis of an almost unnoticeable play that turned a match. Great content inspires many, and this award is here to honor the best of the best. And our winner for this award this year is Juniun. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he has produced the majority of direct OWC-related content over the course of the entire tournament and almost every single previous iteration this year. Feel free to go check him out online. He does some absolutely amazing recaps, some clips from each weekend going on here in and here out. And he has been absolutely dedicated. He's here for every single match going through. And I think for that reason, we need to be recognizing them for that very hard work.
All right, moving into the first of our player categories, we're going to start things off with Most Improved. The Most Improved Player of the Year is an award meant to honor the competitor who has shown significant advancement in their skill level from the previous year. This player, whether they're either a recent addition to a team or a long-standing member, sought to become a driving force in their team and a key to their team's success. Their attitude toward their teammates, their high level of skill, and their overall proficiency in the game has made them worthy of being placed behind truly the great leaders and players who have come before them. And for this year, that award is going to none other than Canada's Zudinator herself. Truly took a level up this year in becoming a main carry for that team. You know, always has been known as a solid player, but this year just took a huge step up across the board in expanding skill sets, becoming a key player on that team, and really putting forth some amazing scores that were a big part of what got Canada as deep into the tournament again this year as they did. You know, she had to take up a tough ask with many players leaving that team from last year, and did an amazing job and just found a position at the top of the mountain in OWC this year, and for those reasons, she is going to be our most improved player for 2021.
A great choice at that. For our fourth award of the year will be the most improved team of the year. This award is to honor the country who has made significant progress from their previous year's placement in 2020. This team has persevered through their lowest of points and fought against all opposition to bring themselves just one step closer to glory. Whether or not they're a new team just beginning their journey this year, or a seasoned group of veterans potentially finding their way again, this team is sure to have turned heads with their nail-biting matchups and Pick'em's prediction upsets. And given those criteria, the winner of this award this will be going to Team United Kingdom. They will be making their return to some of the top placements in the tournament this year. They have fallen back to kind of the low side last year, bottom half of the winning teams after having such a good run in previous years, and all things considered, having fought through defeating teams such as Australia in the later stages of the tournament, being the first team to take points against the United States this year. They have made significant improvement, and that is why we are here to honor this team, who has made quite a large comeback from what we've seen last year.
All right, moving on. Our next award was a very difficult one. It is Rookie of the Year. Now, the Rookie of the Year award honors a first-time OSU World Cup participant who's been in the top performing players on their team over the course of this year's iteration. After improving their skills to reach the very top level, this player will have finally made it into the spotlight, will impress with their play at the highest level. This player's skill is undeniable. Their name will be immortalized with those at the very top. Matchup wins are not necessarily a requirement going in here, but showing incredible skill and composure on the big stage while competing against so many tenured veterans is something that certainly came naturally to them. And this year, this award is going to go to Utami from the United States. And let me say, this was a very difficult one. There have been a number of incredible rookies this year, but Utami coming in after never having played a World Cup before, having a ridiculous run over the course of this year in many tournaments, then coming into OS World Cup and being one of the best performing players from one of the best performing teams. He is in for all kinds of different map styles. The man has a ridiculously wide skill set. He is able to play anything you put in front of him and get a great score on it. So I think, as difficult as it was to choose just one player for this award, Utami really, I think, did end up deserving it. He was a player that just showed up and showed out despite it being his first time here in the World Cup. Great job to him.
And a tough decision at that. I don't think you could have put it any better. There were, I think, potentially maybe 5 or 6 different candidates, and if given the option, we certainly would have chosen every single one of them. There have been some absolutely outstanding step-up players for their country this year that were coming in for their first time, and I think given the nature of things and what we've seen over the past year, that reward was very deserving. And of course, for our next award, will be kind of the opposite of what we were just going over. This next one will be the Veteran of the Year. award. This will be honoring a stalwart of the tournament who over the course of their career has returned year in and year out to support their country. They have made a significant contribution towards the success and well-being of their team and can be likened to a beacon of hope and a measure of their country's overall success. This player has shown through their level of performance and dedication that they are to be well-respected and revered for years to come. Some of you may be able to predict this. This is another one I think that could have gone to a couple of different players. There have been some absolutely amazing star performers in this tournament for such a long time, and I think it is only fitting that this year we give this award to none other than Flying Tuna. He has been an absolute standout performer for South Korea year in, year out. He's been one of their best players. He's been their captain. He's been their light. And I think now, being fitting as this is his last World Cup for the foreseeable future, we wish him the best of luck in his endeavors going forward into his service. We will now be honoring him with the Veteran of the Year award, and I think this one is very well deserved.
Yeah, really amazing to see, his last OWC goes off to military tomorrow, and he pulls his team to a top 3 finish. Really amazing stuff from Tuna. Now, one of the most difficult awards, the last playing award that we have here, is going to be the Player of the Year. Player of the Year, of course, honors the player who has competed throughout the tournament at the very highest level of performance. The award is judged on the merit of matchups won and the individual player's skill cap. They are truly world-class, one of the highest skilled players in tournaments, mechanically, technically. Their performances in this tournament will surely have impressed, and again, while being on the winning team isn't a requirement, will definitely have a few matches to show for themselves. This player may have defined an entire era, built a massive following through their play, or simply just been too good for the opposition. And this one was incredibly difficult, but this year we have decided it has been chosen to go to Mr. Bubbleman from the United Kingdom. This is such a hard award because we have a ton of amazing players year in and year out, the names, but Bubbleman has been the rock for the United Kingdom. He is the reason when they win that it happens. He is their top performer match in and match out. He can play any type of map that you throw his way. And he has been, kind of that guy that tournament performance is often judged by. He wins in every format of tournaments, and OWC is just another place for him to display his ridiculous level of prowess across an entire map pool. He may not have gotten to the absolute last stage, but he was the real shining star for the team of the United Kingdom this year. Their wins were in no small part due to his performance, and so he is earning then that most valuable player, that Player of the Year award for that showing.
And a job well done. Again, these last couple awards, they're very difficult to choose. There are so many fantastic players going through this tournament every single year, and you really want to be able to recognize the performance of all of them in some form of award or prizing or something of the like. But I think that you go through, you see the match costs, you see their performance year after year, you see how they just bring their teams through absolutely everything, and making that single decision is always a tough one. But for that, we will be finishing up as of right now the player award categories. We'll be moving on to a couple of staff award categories, because I think that if you've ever gone through community tournaments and other of the like, it is very, very seldom that you get some staff recognition for the behind-the-scenes work done to put all of these tournaments through and make everything work. And we will be starting this off with our play-by-play caster of the year. This is to award the commentator who has provided some of the best calls over the duration of the tournament, whether they have called moments that have been immortalized forever with their words or have had a consistent run of high-quality broadcasting. This person will be at the very top of their game, specializing in calling action as it goes down and keeping viewers up to speed with the craziness going on in match. This is the play-by-play caster's goal, but some take it to new levels. And I think if you've been watching some matches, generally only brought on for some support roles, this award will be going to none other than Monk the Don, otherwise known as Monk Yatso, our favorite Australian aside from Kano on the commentator side of this year. He has shown up match after match, putting forward amazing commentary. He has stepped above and beyond the Call of Duty what is expected of someone who is brought in for this role. And I think it is very fitting that we give some recognition to this otherwise, I think, below the radar commentator you see a lot of people talked about very often. And we refuse to let this one go without being said. A very well done job this year.
Everybody loves, and that Aussie accent, I think that gives him a little bit of a bonus too. And everybody loves listening to the guy. So, just that little extra push over the top. Great job to Amani, who, the time zones aren't the best, but when he is there, he comes to do his job and does it well. The next staff award is going to go to another commentary category. This is going to be the Color Caster of the Year. So the Color Caster of the Year award honors the, of course, Color Caster, who has provided some of the most memorable analysis and calls in matches over the course of the tournament. This caster will have a knack for storytelling intertwined with statistics and analysis that add depth and meaning to the events happening in the game. While the play-by-play casters mostly provide all of the hype, it's the color casters who really explain the theory behind the picks, the lineups, and analysis of, how or why things are happening in the matches. Their strength may lie in, on-point predictions or even with comic relief, but without the color casters, broadcasts would be way less entertaining. And this year, the award for Color Caster of the Year is going to go to none other than Dio. He is a rookie this year to our commentary team in OWC, but for everyone who has been around the tournament scene over the past couple years, I think you'll no doubt understand why he was chosen. He has been a tireless worker, available for every match possible. He shows up and he knows everything there is to know. He knows the map pool, he knows the teams, he knows the players, he knows the scores they're likely to get. He has everything just set in stone, good to go, so that when he is called upon to provide that analysis, to provide that information and knowledge, Dio is the guy. He is ready to go for that color casting. And it's really amazing to see, his enthusiasm for that position. I think a lot of people were expecting him to come in this year. He was chosen, did an amazing job, and for that reason, he does end up getting this Color Caster of the Year award. Well done to Dio on an amazing rookie campaign here as a caster in OWC.
A job well done to him, and again, for both of our commentator winners thus far. Next award is going to be our third and final caster award, will be our Analyst of the Year. For those of you that know about commentary, there's generally 2 to 3 casters per match. There's the play-by-play caster, the color caster, and the analyst, providing the insight to the deeper statistics in the match. They break down the action and preview upcoming games with their fellow casters. While some are masters of analyzing key moments, others have put in the research to look forward at what will happen and why, as well as providing the statistics to back it up. They may specialize in crafting storylines heading into the upcoming games, but all analysts provide insightful commentary on the tournament that enhances the viewing experience. This is a award that was very difficult to give out because we have a lot of very dedicated casters, and I think picking this one was something that really came down to the wire. It came down to the dedication, the amount of matches available, and the preparation, that was done beforehand. It may have been kind of obvious before on the spreadsheet, but this award will be going to none other than this one guy joining me today here. I've hidden it on the sheet. He wasn't able to see it. We kept it from him. He comes in every single week. He puts together statistic sheets. He has his own sheet that he's put together for the tournament that players used week in and week out for their own personal spreadsheets for their matches, and comes in and does statistics of his own volition every single time, putting in the extra effort that certainly does not go unnoticed every single week. And for that, I congratulate you for this award after many years of commentary. Very well overdue here.
Thank you. That is, I mean, I didn't expect it, so I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
The secret was well worth it. We kept it hidden.
Oh man.
Very much worth it, and that is and you know, congratulations to all of our caster awards this year. Very, very much so. I think myself and all of the other commentators are very happy with how this year went, and the dedication of our broadcasting team stands out every single year. Very, very well done to them. That will do it for our caster awards. We've only got 2 more left for the rest of this award showcase. Next up, and I think the one missing, the one that really stands out, they are there all the time, will be our referee of the year. This award is to honor the referee who has exemplified the strongest qualities within their role. Someone who can be depended on, someone who promotes fair play, makes decisions with open-mindedness and knowledge of the rules. Someone who comes into each match bringing as much as or more enthusiasm than the players. To fill this role is a daunting task, and while many have stepped up, today we will recognize the one who has set the gold standard with their commitment, willingness to learn, and ability to drive others. And with a role housing more staff than all the others, they are truly one in a million. This was one that I had a little bit of trouble trying to pick myself. And I actually went to one of my fellow organizers, Leo FLT, who generally runs our referee team. This award will be given to none other than one of our brand new referee additions this year, Specimen. He has come in every single week with the dedication that is more than ever could have been expected from any referee coming onto this team. We have an absolutely outstanding team of refs that come in every single week. They take care of the matches, they interact with the players, they make sure fair calls are given out. And Specimen, who will in fact be our referee for our grand finals match today, will be the winner of this award. Congratulations, your dedication has earned you a spot here. Very, very well done. He has reffed, I believe, almost half the matches total this year, and that is a feat in and of itself. Very well done there. And I think without further ado, we have our final, and I think I wouldn't call it the biggest award of the year, but this is the most unique. This is the final of our staff awards, but this could technically go to non-staff on the team, but we will give it out nonetheless. Will be our Host's Choice Award. For those of you that know, we have 3 organizers for this tournament that are listed out on the wiki. Myself, Azer, Leo, FLT. We wanted to recognize some of our staff members, some of our community members for their dedication, their willingness to be here week in and week out. And this is an award that has been given independently by us to an individual who has had a significant impact on the tournament in a holistic sense. This individual has shown dedication and passion to improving the tournament and all of the World Cups, and strives to better the experience for all. Any person within the World Cups is eligible to be chosen. However, they have been a constant figure within the tournament and have contributed positively to its growth in some way. Now, this is a very special one, and I know we've talked about this over the course of the past couple awards, but it has been very difficult to choose one person who is very deserving of an award. And for this one, we actually could not pick just one, and we thought it was more fitting to give this to more than one winner. And for that reason, our 2 winners of the Host Choice Award this year will be none other than Puffbuck and Trosk. Now, for those of you who are here week in and week out, Puffbuck, our main chat moderator, every single match, dedication, every time they will be here for all the matches. You've seen them in chat, you see them around. They're in charge of clipping Twitch videos and making sure the experience is amazing for absolutely everyone. If you have been here for at least a stream, you have certainly seen them before. The other one, a little bit maybe behind the scenes, someone who is not recognized quite as often, Trosk. For those of you that don't know, every single match for the World Cup is streamed that we can. that does not overlap with any other match. And for those of you that have wondered who is responsible for that every single week, 99% of these matches streamed dedicated time by Trosk. He is an invaluable resource, and I think I can speak for every single staff member that he is absolutely deserving of this role more than anyone else I think ever has been. You see streamers, you see commentators, you see the other staff members, and the dedication shown from this person has been absolutely outstanding for every year I've been here, for multiple years that others have been. And for that reason, we will be recognizing these two this year for this award. So a very big round of applause and congratulations to them. Earned more than anyone else I can absolutely think of here.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this tournament would not exist as it is without Trosk, and the dude just deserves like so much respect. And Puffbook, like you said, the just being here for every match. I mean, they make it their goal to be in chat for every match, so really cool to see some recognition for those two who are both members of this staff and community that absolutely deserve it. Very important to recognize those two, and very well deserved for both.
Very well deserved. And again, you know, I mentioned that award could go to basically anyone that has either participated in the tournament, whether it's in an outside role as a player, as a contributor, as a staff member. And I thought that it was only fitting that we award this year those who go behind the scenes a little bit more, those who don't get the active recognition that the referees and the commentators get, you know, every week, year in and year out. So finally, kind of pulling the curtain back and the big reveal with those two, we have much to be thankful for, and they are two of those reasons. But for that, we will be ending our awards convocation of sorts, the OWC Awards. This was something that we decided to throw together as a little fun bit before the grand finals this year. There is a lot, I mentioned, that goes into running these tournaments, from not only the staff perspective, but from the players' perspective. You know, the dedication and the drive that it takes to be able to compete and staff at this level is absolutely outstanding, and the recognition, you know, being given to those who can put the time in to get to this level is certainly well deserved. And we will be giving this out. There will be prizes for all the winners of each reward and award this year. We will be receiving those shortly. We won't go into specifics, but for that, we've got about half an hour left to the match. We'll be entering a little bit of an analysis section now. The two of us will be sticking around here. We'll be going through, maybe recapping some of the previous stages of the tournaments, maybe some of predictions for the grand finals today, and we'll be, kind of cycling through here into the next 30 minutes for our grand finals match that starts at 18 UTC. Yeah,
so grand finals, of course, United States versus Germany will be our matchup, but I think the number one thing people will want to talk about is that match yesterday. Germany versus South Korea in the losers final was one of the best matches of this entire tournament, and I think really set the stage for this grand finals that's coming up today. So I think we definitely would be remiss if we didn't start right there, because that's fresh in our minds. You know, it's a match that everybody saw yesterday. I don't even know how to put it, but South Korea just, in the last year of Flying Tuna playing in OWC, really put up a great showing with him as their leader to push Germany all the way to a tiebreaker. I don't know. What are your thoughts, like coming into the grand finals off of the back of that match?
I think that, you went into that losers finals match, and I think that everyone, whether or not it was the 50% that, expected the match to be rather close and hard fought and a close, that wrenching fight to the end there, or whether or not you came into that expecting it to be a blowout. I know there are plenty of Germany supporters this year. They had a run to the grand finals last year, went to tiebreaker against the United States, and just barely missed out on that bracket reset. And I think that the work that they have put in this year, and many have said that this is potentially the best German team that we have seen in the tournament to date. I think that if there was ever a year that they were going to make grand finals work, it is this year in the minds of most people. And South Korea going into that match and putting up that fight, being down, what was it, something 5-2, 6-2 in that matchup, fighting their way back to that tiebreaker and making it rather close, to be honest, in the ending. Whitecap being able to pull out the combo to give Germany the win. But that was, I think, kind of an unexpected result. Whether or not you thought it would go to a close match or to tiebreaker or something of the like, the lead that Germany had was just so outstanding that you would have been hard pressed to predict that South Korea would come back from that. But Germany, that strongest roster, again, we talk about that we've seen every single year, fighting through, making it back to the grand finals. They're looking for a rematch this year with what I saw yesterday as some absolutely ridiculous scores, regardless of how South Korea or Germany played as individual teams. They came out on top because of their performance, absolutely towering over every other team in this tournament. And I think they are going to give us an absolutely outstanding fight today.
Yeah, and with the South Korea thing in mind, and this is sort of a holistic tournament thought. I just big shout outs to all the teams that made losers bracket runs this year. I think that was kind of a storyline of this World Cup, not just from South Korea dropping into losers bracket all the way back in round of 16, but teams like Romania lost in the round of 32 in the winners bracket, and then went ahead and won, what was it, 5 matches in losers bracket. South Korea, kind of a similar thing. Australia won a few matches in losers bracket. So I think one thing that when you talk about South Korea, you talk about their losers bracket run, you have to look at these other teams that did similar things in kind of a retrospective sense. It was one of the highest levels of parity I feel like we've seen in a World Cup. I think a lot of people had a lot of trouble with their pick'ems this year because so many teams were coming in and showing up kind of unexpectedly. And you got performances out of teams that were really amazing. Hong Kong getting all the way to semifinals, Romania getting as far as they did, South Korea making losers bracket runs, so on and so forth. I would hesitantly say that this is a really positive trend as well going forward. Going into 2022 and beyond, we'll see some team changes. We've already seen that South Korea team announce on Twitter that next year their roster is going to look a lot different. They're going to be making a bunch of player changes beyond just tuna, but it shows that I think this ecosystem is growing and developing, and where previously I think you had a very delineated tier list, where you had the top tier teams, mid-tier, low-tier teams. It's getting much more jumbled up. The teams are getting much closer together, and that's why you're seeing this level of competitiveness this year that I think is really incomparable to any year previously. And it's really cool to see and really impressive from a lot of these countries that are showing up and making deeper runs than in the past. So just in kind of a retrospective sense, very, very impressed by a lot of nations in this year's iteration of the tournament.
Yeah, I think we've been kind of surprised by this year. Year in and year out, we have those World Cup roll around, and it ends up being, it hasn't been as exciting as I think some people would have liked in previous years. I think you've we all talk about the wrath of the United States and kind of pushing through the tournament every year. And this is the first year in a very long time, if you've at least been around since before that we've got some real, amazing competition this year. We've seen the most tiebreakers that we've seen in the winners bracket and the losers bracket combined that we have over the past 3 or 4 years. We had our winners finals go to tiebreaker. We had our losers bracket finals go to tiebreaker. And we've got teams that, maybe people wouldn't have expected that have been doing amazing today. We have Team Canada, who I think people kind of pushed to the back a little bit this year because of some of their roster losses, losing players like Ryuke and Trev Rasher and all of them, they got pushed to the back, and them fighting all the way to that match in losers round 7 against South Korea, coming 5-7 just barely before making that tiebreaker appearance there between them. An absolutely amazing fight from them. You mentioned a team like Romania, who lost rather early in the tournament. Romania, they lost in the first round of 32 match against Taiwan 5-3. And, we kind of liken them to being almost the Grim Reaper of the losers bracket. Every single week, Romania kept pushing through and just absolutely demolishing teams that looked so strong this year. I mean, they worked their way through France and Poland and all of those teams, and they even, kind of go through and Indonesia in tiebreaker of the like, and, finally succumbing to South Korea, who fought all the way up against Germany, is a rather amazing run for them. Likewise, teams like Australia getting knocked down a little bit earlier than they would have liked to. They had a very difficult round of 16 matchup. They had to go against a very strong German roster, and that round of 16, Germany looked absolutely amazing in that match, knocking them to the losers bracket. They had a well-fought match against Singapore and Sweden, just making through that, not easily, but definitely with the confidence that they were looking for. Made it through a very strong Russian team, beating the seed above them as well, 13th to the 14th seeded there. And then the United Kingdom going to tiebreaker there. And again, the UK, the team that we recognized for making an absolutely amazing run this year, despite roster switches, despite having a little bit of an underperformance last year, some rebuilding. And then, I guess, so I don't ramble on for too long here, Hong Kong, the last of the teams that they need to be recognized this year. They are a team that lost some absolutely massive players for them this year. I think, if you watch some of the showcases and the predictions, they lost 5 players this year, but they didn't just lose any 5 players this year. They lost Saku, Hibiki, Iredi, Denier, Nezar, and Chaos Litz, and that is a massive hit to a roster if I've ever seen one. That is just absolutely crazy that they pushed through the tournament this year, and they made it work. They fought all the way up to facing off against the United States in the semifinals, finally taking a loss there. And then, of course, a very difficult match against South Korea, but making it all the way up into those top standing spots here. That is absolutely crazy to me, against all odds. We have a lot of teams that were considered underdogs this year, and them pushing that far, and, very, very well done to them.
And I think I would like to use that as kind of a jumping off a little bit with talking about kind of the underdogs. We did our little awards thing, but I definitely want to give a little bit more recognition to some of the players that we didn't talk about, who are ones that aren't going to be in the match today later on. So you talked about Hong Kong, and I think they were one of the contenders for that most improved team this year, making it all the way up into the finals week. Really impressive stuff from them. Meanwhile, South Korea, I think when you talk about most improved player as well as rookie, they had Karcher this year, who became a main carry on that team after really being kind of quiet last year. He's not a player that you see and you think, okay, this guy's going to carry matches, this guy's going to come in and do amazing things. But he showed up this year. The improvement from him was really amazing. I think that's another one that, would be kind of an honorable mention type of guy in that category. South Korea as well had Doomsday Fanboy, who was a rookie this year, that I think a lot of people really didn't know much about. I know I wasn't familiar with him personally coming into this tournament, and he came in and put up some really great performances. He was a big part of their win over Canada. He was a big part of why they were able to be so competitive in the late stages of the tournament. So some really impressive performances from a couple of other people that we didn't really talk about as much. And, talking about all these teams doing remarkable things with all these team changes, I think our longest list of players we were trying to decide between was Rookie of the Year, if memory serves. We had so many candidates for that category. Obviously ended up going to Utami. There's a couple of other rookies on the United States team alone that have looked amazing. I mean, Arison, of course, comes in for the speed picks and FC's everything he looks at. Taquito comes in for hidden stuff. Exarch fills his niche on kind of some of the streamier maps and such. On Poland, you had Ristel, aka Malashevsky. On Canada, you had their rookie captain, Xylice. On Germany, you had Kriller, who has come in and really been a large part of why we talk about Germany, expanding out their skill set and really giving themselves that little bit of added bonus to get to that top step on the podium, which, goes back to that kind of seeing the parity. All these rookies coming in and putting up amazing performances has been another one of those really cool things to see for me in this tournament this year. I think there are even more than that, but those are just a few of the names that come to mind as players who really came in this year on their first attempt, on their first entry into the World Cup, and really outperformed expectations, even if their expectations were already through the roof. I think we talk about Arison, and his little one misses here and there with 99.7 AC. We make that joke here and there. Ristel has carried a lot of teams in team tournaments over the course of the year. So they came in with high expectations and they lived up to them. They put up, the best scores on their team in a lot of different maps. And I think that those kind of guys definitely deserve some additional recognition. Fell just maybe short in a couple cases of being chosen for the awards that they may have been eligible for, but I still deserve, kind of a little bit of additional recognition because, OWC grows and it's a very organic sort of tournament where you have teams making a lot of changes year over year. The United States changing out a bunch of their players, Hong Kong changing out a bunch of their players, Canada changing out a bunch of their players, and still showing up at the top of the tournament really goes to show how much these countries have in store. And I think that, going forward and seeing these changes, we are just going to continue to see those countries and others getting better and better. And that is really awesome to me.
Yeah, that is, again, the difficulty and the sheer level of depth that we're seeing from so many teams this year is absolutely amazing. And I couldn't be more excited for what the tournament has in store for us next year and what these teams are going to be able to put up for rosters, because there is just so many new players that are, arguably more standout than some of the vets, some who have been here for a very long time. And you talk about how difficult it is to pick between these awards, and there are so many people that are deserving of them. And rookie of the year, I feel like that is always the contested one. There's so many good players. They all have their own little thing that they're good at. They all fill their role within a team, and you have to be able to take that, go into next year. You can build a team around it. You can find those players, and you are going to set yourself up rather well. Likewise, I think we mentioned it with it as well. Player of the year. I think there are so many invaluable players for each country's roster every single year. You have the carries that come through. Specifically, of course, we recognize Bubbleman this year because he has single-handedly dragged his team year after year to late stages of the tournament, despite literally all odds. But we do want to recognize that he is certainly not the only one that does that for his team and fills that role. I guess, someone that we might even want to mention for this, and, he's performed outstanding in terms of the later rounds of the tournament, but someone like Whitecat, I think there was a lot of skepticism because the tournament community is more of a closed place, I think, from the outside. So whenever you get that, someone like Whitecat came through and they took number one by storm in the game. And then they started to participate in tournaments. And, he started off, he was a little bit shaky, he was a little bit nervous. Last year maybe didn't fill the role of that number one player that Germany might have wanted him to fill. And he came in this year and he shut everyone up in these late stages. He has been absolutely outstanding for Germany. I don't think we could have talked about it more in the winners finals match. He was the driving force of that team. Map in and map out, hands down. Performances, FCs, 1 misses, 800K, 900K, full score. It was the performance that you only dream of if you're playing in this tournament. And, we've seen it very, very few times from players. And I think that, going between them, that is just something that I think we have to mention. And I think it could be an absolutely massive proponent in this match today. Likewise, maybe with some of, veteran of the year candidates. We didn't really mention players like Dustdice and Okinamo on that German roster as well. Been here every single year for that team. They are the mainstays of that team, the staples, they're rocks. They are who you can count on to come back. And this year's performance from them has been very, very good. They have made the step up from last year. They have stood alongside Whitecat, or rather Whitecat, I guess, standing alongside them, being a new addition. And they've put up that triple roster that has absolutely gone through teams like they're nothing.
Yeah, I think, starting to look forward a little bit into the match that we're going to be seeing in just a few minutes. I think there's a couple of big factors that will come into play, and it's the mainstay carry performers and then the kind of fill-in players. So, like you talked about, Whitecat, Dustdice, Okinamo, kind of guys that are in for a lot of different maps, taking on, I'm a Fancy Lad Utami. Fire Age has been playing a lot of different maps as well for the United States. And then kind of the fill players on the other end of the spectrum, you have guys who come in for specific skill sets, who sometimes don't get talked about as much because they're not the ones in for 12, 13 maps in a match. Your guys like Hazy and Rising from Germany, Arison or Exarch from the United States, who come in for their particular skill set, whatever it may be. It seems like speed, that left-hand mechanic tends to be kind of a skill set that people talk about in that regard. But those guys come in and they have to be counted on to come in for a specific skill set and perform well on it. And we've seen a little bit of variance in that regard. Whereas somebody like Whitecat is going to come in and okay, I'm going to get like 800k out of this guy. Dustdice comes in, okay, we're probably going to get 900k out of this guy. Some of the other players have been a little more up and down. And I think that's going to be one of the storylines that I'm looking at really in this grand final is how well do these teams utilize their depth, and how well do their depth players perform? In basketball, you talk about the 12th man of the year, same kind of thing in OSU, where you have that guy who's only in for a couple picks, but that can really make or break a match because it might not be something that your team is super strong at. Arison comes in and FC's a speed pick against Germany, like last week, where they won a couple of DTs in that match against the team they're not expected to win double time against. He may not have been in for 10, 11 maps in that like a Fancy Ladder and Utami was, but he still had a big impact because without those break points, the United States doesn't end up winning that match, and Germany takes it, and they're the ones sitting in the winner's bracket side of the grand final. So I really think that, as we go into this match, that discussion of these, anchor players, the rocks of their team, versus the depth players who come in for very specific cases, that's going to be, I think, a big part of what we see determining who wins this match. Who has more options in the pool to pick from, who have, the better late picks, past your first maybe 2 or 3 that are kind of a runaway for your team, who's able to use those players to their fullest potential and get the most out of them in a grand final. And that's such a big part of constructing any roster that is going to be competitive in a late stage of a World Cup like this.
It's almost the narrative that, we kind of go through for the entire tournament. You have the early stages versus the late stages, and it comes down to there are certain teams that will absolutely tear through early stages because they have the skill floor, they have the consistency, they have exactly the basic skill sets that you need to run through tournament matches. And then you have the late stage teams. They are high skill cap, high consistency, especially in the OWC level. They also have a very strong 3 to 4 person roster. I think what separates these top level teams is having multiple carries per map versus maybe 1 or 2. And you go into this grand finals match and you see teams like the United States and Germany, and you could pick out a 3 or 4 person roster on almost every single map that would absolutely trash other teams in this tournament because they're just so skilled, they're so consistent, they're so comfortable with these high profile matches at this point that they're just ready to go in and perform the way that they know how. And that goes for the carry players that are in for every single map. They want to, look at those consistency players that are maybe only in for 1 or 2. We mentioned players like even on the United States and, Germany. Likewise, United States has players like Arison really only in for those speed picks, those stamina maps. They're not, kind of used as often. And then, you kind of have players on Germany, Hallowatch, or maybe a little bit more versatile in terms of their overall skill sets, but, they're really used at those opportunities where you really need them. The hard rock, the hidden map pool, you have to make sure that, you use them when their skill set is going to benefit you the most. And, those 2 players just being used as examples, there's many more, but, kind of putting them through. And they are what kind of make these teams click. They are, the combining. They're the gears that make things turn. You've got the wheels as the carry players, and then I guess it's kind of like a bike. You got the gears, all those supporting players. Me and my fantastic references, and I think you kind of see what we're going for here. But I think, let's see if we can get this good here.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. We're good. We fixed
I had to unmute. That was funny. I had to reply to something. I apologize. But yeah, I think that's kind of true, though. I mean, if the analogy works, it works. And I think that's going to be an interesting factor because this pool is... I mean, first off, it's really hard. We saw a lot of maps from it played yesterday, and I think you could tell from some of the performances that there are a lot of really difficult maps in this pool. So that discussion of the skill cap players becomes very, very important because it's going to be, who can put in those good scores. And I think, in trying to predict a winner for this match, I think that becomes a big part. Last week we saw a couple of maps in slots that typically would have favored one team ending up going to the other. We talked at length about, Germany winning a couple of hidden picks, United States winning several double time picks. And this week in a pool that is, I don't want to call it gimmicky because that has such a negative connotation, but there are kind of a lot of these sort of niche maps that fill sort of oddball skill sets. And that's traditionally been something the United States has been very good at. But if we get performances from Germany like we saw yesterday out of guys like Whitecat Dust Ice, and then if they're fill players for different picks, guys like Kriller and so on come in and do well on some of those weirder maps, Germany will be right in it again, just like they were last week. But I do think that, I think the consistency of the USA players, those top skill cap guys, on some of these types of maps, things like your really awkward hard rocks this week, which was maybe Germany favored previously, but now they've kind of trended in an even more difficult direction. Maybe that swings a little bit over to the United States, but meanwhile, Germany with their speed advantage, this week's like Double Time 2, for instance, is a map that almost nobody can play. You get a couple players from Germany who can do it. Maybe things look a little better for them on the DTs than they did last week. So I think the performance of the skill cap combined with this difficult, awkward pool is going to be another thing that really defines how this match plays out. And the strategy of perfectly banning and picking is going to be more and more important because the margins are so slim between these teams. And they've already gone to a tiebreaker last week. Germany went to a tiebreaker yesterday, so US gets a lot of information on kind of what their likely picks and bans are. And when those margins are as small as they are, it's just the littlest things. One player having a slightly better or worse day, or one team just having a couple more picks that are a little more comfortable for them, that can really determine the outcome of the whole thing. So, a question for you as somebody who's, a more high level player than I am, what are your thoughts on like how this pool fares for these two teams in their individual matchup today?
Having gone through and I guess having the opportunity to play test and go through this pool and kind of curate a little bit before it was released, this is, all things considered, a much more conventional pool, I think, than we've seen in previous weeks. I think there have been a couple of slots that have, or even, in the tournament as a whole, has kind of sat in this comfortable zone in terms of skill sets. There hasn't been much branching out in terms of ridiculously, technically intensive maps or mechanically intensive maps that only one player can play. There are still maps in these pools, I think, that we're going to be seeing some really strong scores on. And, generally when you look at pools, you kind of go through and you're like, okay, the Nomad one starts to base the star rating off of it and the difficulty changes. You go all the way down to tiebreakers, a little bit more difficult. You have the slots that kind of fill their dedicated purposes. And we've got some very straightforward stuff this year. We've seen things like Nomad 2. If you watch the showcase, Varvalion with that double S for the showcase, it's a comfortable map if you are a strong stream player. Likewise with many other slots in here, you've got stuff like the DT3. If you're a strong speed player, that map is going to be very comfortable for you. The Nomad 1, aim players, you've got the Flow Aim, you've got Nomad 5, 7.8 stars, 250 BPM. That is our second highest star rating map in the pool in that slot, aside from DT3. We actually reach 8 stars this year in terms of overall map pool difficulty, so that is something that is a little bit new to these players as well. But I can't foresee players being terribly capped on this. I think you'll have, the select few that aren't super comfortable on things, but otherwise I think this pool fares very well for both of these teams. And I think that's in part why we've been seeing so many close matchups, as the nature of pooling this year has catered so well to the skill sets of players that, kind of expect to go into these slots, and they see the map and they know exactly what they have to do. They know what they're presented with and they know that they're ready for it. And that is invaluable if you're a player, knowing what to expect going into it.
Yeah, I think mechanics are just, I don't know, it feels like, mechanics at this level are something that are easier to be consistent on, but a lot of these super experienced tournament players who have been, like you're talking about, who've been around the kind of archetypal pools that we're seeing, which you've got a lot of those in this match. I think those guys are still going to be able to play well. But as we get close, we're getting close to the time here. I think the last thing we gotta make a decision. On who we think. I want to make a prediction here on who might win. I know it's going to be a close match, but what do we think? Does Germany finally have what it takes? Do you think they can win a set and a bracket reset? Or does the USA, take that advantage coming from the winner's side and close things out? Personally, after seeing Germany yesterday, I think this might be their time.
I'm going to stay true to my word. I have been talking about Germany nonstop since the beginning of this recap. I have said multiple times that they are the strongest Germany roster that we have seen across the tournament in all the years that they've been playing the World Cups. This is, if anything, this is the roster that we are looking for. This is the one that is going to step up to the plate. They're going to be the ones to give the US a hard time here. And I think that, regardless of who prevails in the ending of this match, whether or not we go to tiebreaker, to bracket reset, whether or not Germany or the United States sweeps the other in the first set, who knows what happens in this match. I think we are in for quite a treat of this match. And before we move on, I just want to be careful. I think I missed a page in the script of this. Sorry about that. Gotta go back to the awards showcase. We actually forgot about one. We still have one more award for the team of the year. We have a team award that honors the team who has had an incredible run in terms of results, popularity, and skill level throughout the course of the entire tournament. They have been the team to beat and the best beyond a reasonable doubt. Their skill and results have raised the profile of the OS World Cup and raised the standards of competition within the game as a whole. And their results from this year will have been some of the best ever seen and unlikely to be matched anytime soon. And for the choice of Team of the Year will be decided on by the results of this match. Your winners of the Grand Finals will be that. We are now going to move in officially. It is time, 18 UTC. It is United States versus